While superstar athletes have often been called heroes, recent events have reminded us who the real heroes are. They're the ones who serve and protect America, including members of the armed forces who have gone off to battle. Among them were NBA players who served in World War II and Korea. And today, as the nation fights a new war, players are once again demonstrating their support. This week, a salute to the armed forces on Vintage NBA.
2 seconds, 1 second, West throws it up, he makes it!
Now there's a steal by Bird, underneath the DJ, lays it in!
Oh, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan!
Yes, basketball has changed. It's always been a great game, but now it has a new spirit.
He dunks like Dr. J.
He might be the new Iceman.
The modern day Wilt Chamberlain.
He looked like Magic Johnson.
The future has arrived.
You are watching what greatness is all about.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Vintage NBA. I'm Robin Roberts. Over the next few days, the NBA will hold its All-Star Weekend in Philadelphia, the city where America's freedom was born. So what better time for a show with a patriotic theme? We're going to take a look at some of the NBA greats who served in the armed forces. And later, we'll see how today's players helped in the recovery from the September 11th attacks. One of the most prominent NBA servicemen is David Robinson, a graduate of the Naval Academy. He spent 2 years in military duty before coming to San Antonio. This week, the Admiral has docked in the chair to look back at his Navy days.
I picked the Naval Academy because it's, I wanted to be an engineer, and it's one of the best engineering schools in the country. Well, at the time, I had only played 1 year of high school hoops, so it wasn't a huge factor. I mean, although I did like playing basketball, and I was growing at the time, I was learning a lot about it. The education was the biggest factor about going to the academy. I just thought it was a great school, and I thought it would be a great place to be.
You can feel the pride, too, while taking advantage of some great Navy high-tech training. Get your future started in the right direction.
It's nonstop. It's strenuous. I mean, from the day you get there, your day is scheduled every 15 minutes from, 5 o'clock in the morning to 10 o'clock at night. It was a tremendous experience. I learned a lot about myself, and I think that helped me kind of deal with a lot of the challenges that have arisen in my life now. And when I got to the NBA, I thought, man, this is cake. Are you kidding me? Guys living life like this? They put so much on you. You can't really do it all. I mean, they give you so much to memorize, and the schoolwork is so hard, and then the military aspect of it would really challenge you. You kind of learn to get your priorities set, get done what's important, and then take the heat for what's not, what you didn't get done.
In step with the Navy's new refitting program are thousands of new recruits who will help man the Navy's expanding task forces. So it's anchors away for our ever-growing fleet.
I actually, spent some summers when I was at the academy out on some subs. It was not that comfortable. The subs aren't built for 7-feet guys. So I spent a lot of time ducking and being cramped up. And when you're crawling around in the woods trying to play war, you don't want to be 7 feet tall, trust me. Fortunately, I was a good athlete, and that helped me because, at the academy, there's a lot of physical tests, a lot of challenges, and it's nice to be able to be up to those physical challenges. The years have passed by. I mean, I was young and athletic and just excited. I was just excited to be out there every time. Oh, this is my senior year here. I was captain of the basketball team. I had a really bad haircut, but no mustache here. We couldn't have the facial hair at the academy. Oh, I remember this game. This is at Georgia Tech. They had John Sally and, oh, look at that, those skinny Tom Hammonds. That was a long time ago, and I was a lot thinner than I remember. Oh, my goodness, I can't believe you got these photos. You had to dig these up. I mean, it's 15, 20 years ago. That was a long time ago.
The Admiral does it again.
The Admiral showing that at 7'1", he's got some pretty good foot speed.
The Admiral comes through again.
Well, the Admiral came by, I think, because of the NCAA tournament we were playing. It was a national TV game. Bert Musburger was doing it. during the game, he started calling me the Admiral. And when I got back to the Naval Academy, all the media people were calling me the Admiral, and it was very uncomfortable because, you got a lot of respect for the Admirals. I mean, those guys work hard, and you have to be stellar to get to that level. Over time, I really have appreciated it. It's really something that means a lot to me. It is the land of the free and the home of the brave. It has always made me understand that people have paid a heavy price for us to live the way we live. Let's not forget that, that we have a responsibility to keep laying those tracks down like our heroes, nation's heroes, have done in the past. We've got to keep it going.
David had all the qualifications to be a Navy officer except for one slight problem, his height. No men over 6'6" are admitted, but that didn't apply to Robinson because he surpassed that barrier after he'd already been accepted. And David says he still relies on the values he learned in the Navy each time he steps on the court. Values like discipline, hard work, and teamwork. We'll spotlight some of the other players who served their country when we come back.
I was not a combat Marine. Now, if I were a combat Marine, I might not be sitting talking to you today. I have all the admiration in the world for those people. They are the world's greatest as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I've always had a tremendous amount of pride having served my country or being a part of here, because I feel that we enjoy all the benefits of America, then we shouldn't be afraid of giving back.
Lenny Wilkens, just one of the players who wore both an MBA and a military uniform. In fact, when the NBA began in 1946, many of the players were veterans of World War II, which had just ended the previous year. After fighting overseas, they welcomed the chance to play a game for a living. But for all they accomplished in basketball, the NBA's vets are just as proud of the role they played in defending their country.
We all knew that we were going to go in the service if we could possibly make it. And even though I was 6'7" and probably could have gotten some kind of a deferment, why that was unthought of. You were going to go and serve.
I think anybody that goes in the service should get high marks. If you have to fight, you fight. If you don't, why? Unfortunately, I didn't have to get shot at, but I would have certainly gone if they'd asked.
I was not a combat Marine. Now, if I were a combat Marine, I might not be sitting talking to you today. I have all the admiration in the world for those people. They are the world's greatest as far as I'm concerned. Even though I wasn't a combat Marine, I was still a Marine, and that's something.
The fight for freedom today is a fight for the ideal of brotherhood. Bigotry and intolerance, racial or religious hate and discrimination are spiritual acts of treason. And on the other hand, brotherhood means a united America, and a united America is perhaps the sole remaining hope for a shattered world.
America was never more united than in the 1940s as the country was engulfed in World War II. Millions took part in the war effort, including a young basketball star named Alex Hannum.
Of all things, I was too big for the Marines, and I was too big for the Navy. I was 6'7", and the only branch of the service that would take me would be the Enlisted Reserve Corps of the Army, which I enrolled in at that time. And I served for 3 years in the medical department of the Army in the United States. I never got overseas.
Paul Arizin of the Philadelphia Warriors. There you see him, number 11, making one of his spectacular jump shots.
Paul Arizin led the NBA in scoring in 1952. He would spend the next 2 years serving with the Marines in the Korean War, but still maintained his skills.
At that time, the Marine Corps was drafting. When I finished with boot camp at Parris Island, I was transferred to Quantico, and I managed to play ball there for the remainder of my tour during 2 years.
In 1962, Lenny Wilkens was in his second season with the St. Louis Hawks. But with the U.S. involved in a crisis in Berlin, Wilkens was called to military service.
I was stationed at Fort Lee, Virginia. I agreed to play for the post teams. We played 25, 30 games. And when we were off, I worked it out so that I could go fly back home and play with the Hawks. The Hawks were so bad that year, they were desperate, and so they welcomed me when I came back. And I played 20 games that season with the Hawks, and that's all I could play because I couldn't get away at the other time.
Basketball in the Garden. Tonight it's the Armed Forces All-Stars versus the Andrews Air Force Base.
The various branches of the military had their own basketball squads who formed intense rivalries. And during World War II, they featured some of the top stars in the country.
Some of the fellows we played against, like Joe Fulks, Jim Pollard, and on down the line, all fellas that right after the war went on to play in the NBA.
One game we were playing against the Army Air Force team who had an active player named Ronald Reagan, and we beat that devil out of him.
We were sent when my first year to play for the Marine Corps Championship in San Diego against a recruit depot out there. And we were told when we left, we flew on a service plane, if you guys don't win, you're not coming back, you're going to Korea. Now, that's pressure, okay? You talk about pressure. In NBA games, it doesn't amount to that. We fortunately won and we didn't go to Korea.
One player who did go off to battle was Ralph Kaplowitz. He played in the NBA for the Knicks and Warriors. But in World War II, Ralph was an Army fighter pilot, and in August of 1945, his mission took him near Hiroshima, Japan.
In our briefing, we were told to stay away from a certain area west of Kyushu. I didn't know why we had to stay away from that area. But while we were escorting this B-24, I looked over to the west, and there were tremendous clouds. Tremendous clouds. And I said to myself, they probably told us to stay away from there because of the bad weather. Now we finish the mission, we come back, and suddenly there's an announcement on the loudspeaker. We have just dropped a bomb that's 20,000 times more powerful than any bomb that we have. When I heard that, I got shivers all down my back. I said, my God, the war's going to be over, and I'm still alive. I saw the cloud, which turned out to be the atomic bomb cloud.
For those who have gone from the basketball court to the battlefield, there is a feeling of pride and a sense of togetherness that endures to this day.
Well, the best part was making lifelong relationships with a lot of my closest friends.
I think, from my perspective, it's knowing I went through boot camp, and also the feeling of the camaraderie that exists between Marines, fellow Marines. The infantry guys, the guys who are in the trenches are the greatest. And I think once a Marine, always a Marine. I think that's extremely true.
I'm proud of every minute I had to serve. I think all of us felt the same way. It was a feeling of survival, and everyone served in those days, and we're proud of it.
Even those players who went off to fight in World War II found ways to pursue the game. For example, Joe Fulks played with the Marine All-Star squad. Slater Martin remembers putting a hoop on board his ship in the Navy and organizing pickup games among the crew. Today's players may not be war veterans, but they found ways to display their patriotism in the days and weeks following September 11th. More about that coming up. But first, we flash back to 1949. The attacks of last September deeply affected the entire country, and the NBA was certainly no exception. Scanning the internet, we find some quotes from Commissioner David Stern about how the league intensified its efforts to provide for the safety and security of players and fans. Kobe Bryant wrote an article for Newsweek saying the events had made him a more patient person. He realized that life is too short to get upset over trivial things. The NBA dedicated its season to honoring the victims and the heroes of September 11th. And around the league, players found many ways to help in the recovery effort. During trips to New York City, NBA teams visited firehouses affected by the tragedy. They saluted firefighters and tried to boost their spirits.
I'm just happy, to get a chance to even meet heroes like these guys. I mean, these guys put their life on the line, for other people every day, and for us to be able just to talk to guys like this is, warms my heart a lot just to be able to be in their presence.
Fire in the hole, Eric!
Being a New Yorker, I was just willing to come do it. It's just great to meet the heroes of New York, and I'm just overwhelmed by the whole thing.
We look up to entertainers and athletes so much, but these guys are the guys that were really willing to sacrifice their lives and put things at risk to save people. I think this is definitely a time to pay homage to them.
The mothers of NBA players also lent a hand as they helped to serve meals to those who are working at Ground Zero.
Our goal really is to give back to our community, to help at this time of tragedy, but we here in New York are doing what we can.
At an elementary school near the World Trade Center site, the Spurs provided support to students.
It's great to come out here and talk to the kids, see the kids smile a little bit. You kind of know they're so close, so they're affected by it, so you can't change that. But to come out here and change their mindset for a little while and give them something different to talk about, I thought that was great.
And members of the Dallas Mavericks raised money for UNICEF, which is funding supplies for the children of Afghanistan.
I think it's very important, to help somebody else, especially the kids, I know they're suffering right now and they don't have anything to do with everything that is going on right now over there.
Hopefully with our help, the kids will be able to survive a winter and we can help rebuild the infrastructure there in Afghanistan.
Thanks for being here today. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The NBA also donated clothing, supplies, and money to the recovery efforts in New York and Washington. And a number of players contributed portions of their salaries, including Michael Jordan. He donated his entire salary for this season, $1 million, to the relief fund for victims of September 11th. We'll be back with more, including the Airwave Archive, when Vintage NBA returns. In 1954, America was finally at peace. The Korean War had ended the previous year, and World War II was even further in the past. So the country was ready for a little entertainment, and one place to find it was in sports. The Minneapolis Lakers were the NBA's reigning dynasty, but they faced a challenge in the finals that year from Dolph Schayes and the Syracuse Nationals. So we got a treat for you. We've uncovered an old newsreel from that series. We shook off some of the dust, and here it is in the Airwave Archive.
Hi there, everyone. This is Dick Enroth reporting the first game of the Professional Basketball World Series between the Syracuse Nationals, champions of the Eastern Division of the National Basketball Association, and the Minneapolis Lakers, kings of the Western Division of the NBA. This is basketball at its greatest, as played by the top players in the history of the cage sport. Tonight, we're at the Minneapolis Auditorium for the first game of the Basketball World Series. Here are the Lakers, the perennial champions of basketball, warming up before the start of the game. Here is the tip-off, George Mikan jumping against rookie Jim Neal. The Nationals opened with Neal at the pivot, Wally Osterkorn from Illinois, and Paul Seymour from Toledo at the forwards, Bill Kenville from St. Bonaventure, and George King and Morris Harvey at the guards. The Lakers start with Mikan at the pivot, Jim Pollard of Stanford, and Vern Mickelson of Hamlin on the front line, Slater Martin from Texas, and Whitey Scoot from Minnesota in the backcourt. The Nationals draw first blood as George King follows up his own shot with an easy layup. Well, the Lakers come right back with big Vern Mickelson being pushed by Wally Osterkorn while in the act of shooting. Mick hit on both free throws, and the game is tied 2-2. Al Servey, the fiery coach of Syracuse, has his injury-riddled ball players keyed up for this all-important money series. Close to $2,000 per man rides in the outcome of this best 4 out of 7 games. Let's watch Bill Kenville, wearing number 15, drive in for a shot. The whistle blows, and there's a foul called on Mickelson of the Lakers. Kenville got a free throw, but missed. The Nationals intercepted a Laker pass, and they stormed back down the court. Now let's watch as they move the ball around until big Jim Neal gets position on Mikan. Captain Paul Seymour lobs a pass over the head of Laker Whitey Skoog to Neal, who swings to his right for the basket. Syracuse leads 4-2. Neal, a surprise starter in the series, misses the free throw. The ball is picked up by Whitey Skoog from Brainerd, Minnesota. Whitey dribbles down the length of the court before passing to Mickelson. The 6'7" star from Hamline University fakes an overhead shot, then passes back to Skoog. Notice how the champions move the ball around. And even the George Mikan, the great, misses in this tough league. 4 Nationals are in position to rebound, but Neal came down with the ball. Now it's the Nats' turn to set up a play. Syracuse finished 3rd in the Eastern Division of the NBA behind New York and Boston. But the Nats have had little trouble in the playoffs, whipping New York 2 straight games and beating Red Auerbach's Boston Celtics 3 straight. Here's Neal loose again, and it's another Syracuse basket. The Nationals lead 6-2. Down by 4 points, Minnesota's Whitey Skoog, playing for Minneapolis, comes right back. Skoog hits on a one-hander. George King, number 3, takes the ball out of bounds. The ex-college scoring champion from Morris Harvey passes to his running mate, Paul Seymour, number 5. And the Nats move the ball into the front court. Notice how the Syracuse team is banged up, if you will. The Nats came down the stretch, taking game after game, but suffering bump after bump. It seems almost impossible for some of the Nats to play basketball, but play they did, forcing the fabulous Lakers, the greatest basketball team of all time, to the limit of their ability. Watch the Lakers uncork one of their favorite plays this time. Slater Martin, the smallest man in pro basketball at 5'10", picks up a perfect pass from Mikan, and it's the Minneapolis basket. This year, as always, the National Basketball Association is divided into 2 divisions. The Eastern Division is composed of Syracuse here, New York Knickerbockers, Boston Celtics, Philadelphia Warriors, and Baltimore Bullets. The Western Division is made up of the famed Lakers, Rochester Royals, Fort Wayne Pistons, and Milwaukee Hawks. The fabulous Lakers, whom you're watching right now, have been compared to the greatest sports teams of all time, such as the Yankees and Knute Rockne's terrific Notre Dame football machines of the 20s. When Laker president Ben Berger and company went into the basketball business, all they received in return for their cash investment were 15 dirty and worn-out uniforms from the defunct Detroit Gems of the National Basketball League. The first big name signed by the Minneapolis group was Jimmy Pollard, the flash of the Amateur League, playing for the Oakland Vintners. After Pollard came 2 homegrown products in Don Carlson and Tony Jarris. Jack Dewan was picked up from Loyola University of Chicago. But the biggest break of all came when the All-American Basketball League blew up. George Mikan was drafted by the Lakers. Mikan, the highest paid player in basketball, immediately became the greatest drawing card in the history of the game. Laker coach Johnny Kundla, himself an all-conference player in his collegiate days at Minnesota, built his attack around the great Mikan. It was Mikan, the money player, who played with a broken arm in the World Series of 1949 against the Washington Capitals. And it was Mikan who became the greatest scoring machine in the history of the pro game. The league tried its best to halt Mikan and Minneapolis, installing the 12-foot wide lane instead of the usual 6-foot lane. This move was directed at George Mikan. It probably is the first time any league has discriminated against a player. The 12-foot lane slowed Mikan down a bit, but Coach Kundla, being a master at basketball, built a fast-moving, quick-shooting machine that wasn't to be halted. Other changes in the pro game is limiting the offensive team to 24 seconds of possession with the basketball. If that offensive team does not try a shot in that space of time, it loses possession of the ball. The much-discussed zone defense has been outlawed by the pros. The zone defense, used mostly by Hank Iba at Oklahoma A&M and Ozzie Cowles of Minnesota, has been the object of many an attack. The pros believe that the paying customer would rather see a fast-moving, high-scoring game than a defensive battle between possession teams. Thus, the NBA outlawed the zone defense. 6 fouls are allowed per man in the NBA. 12-minute quarters are played in league games, with overtime periods, if needed, being 5 minutes long. During the last 2 minutes of a regulation time, there shall be a jump ball after every successful free throw, or in the case of 2 free throws, after the second free throw is made. League President Morris Podoloff was recently elected to a new long-term contract. Only the best of the college graduates makes the National Basketball Association. The NBA is tough to break into, and it's a truly great player who makes the grade. Of the more than 15 million men and boys playing the game in the United States, only 90 move into the pay-for-play game. Take the Lakers, for example. On this team you're watching right now, only Clyde Lovellette, the All-American of Kansas University, has made the jump into the pro game, and Lovellette is the second-string center. The champs have gone along with their front line of George Mikan, Vern Mickelson, and Jim Pollard for the last 4 years. The Lakers' three guards, Slater, Martin, Pepsol, and Whitey Skoog, have been around for 3 or more years. With the player limit being 10 men per club, perhaps you see how hard it is for a rookie to break into the NBA.
How about that call of the game? Not a lot of play-by-play, but you did get a complete overview of the NBA rules, not to mention the fact that the Lakers purchased 15 worn-out uniforms from the Detroit Gems. There's something I'll bet you didn't know. And as we head to a break, here's something else you might not know from the year 1954. By 1954, the Lakers were shooting for their 6th championship in 7 years. They were heavily favored against an undermanned Syracuse team that was nicknamed the Bandage Brigade. 2 of their stars, Dolph Schayes and Earl Lloyd, had broken hands and played with casts in the finals. So let's see if the Nationals can stay with the Lakers as we return now to Game 1.
The Nats used a pressing defense, resulting in many a bad pass for the Lakers. Here, the Eastern Division champs score on Bill Kenball's long shot is 10-6 Syracuse. Whitey Skoog sparked the Lakers in the first half by shooting on 6, and it's 10-8 Syracuse. Jim Neal comes right back for the Nats, hitting another beauty, and the Syracuse club leads 12-8. Just about time we hear from Mr. Basketball, George Mikan. Watch Big George tip in Vern Mickelson's shot, and the Lakers pull up within a 2-point deficit. Bob LeBoy, the ex-Western Kentucky star, hits on a one-hander, and Syracuse leads by 4 points. Here's a beauty. Paul Seymour, number 5, fakes Skoog out of position for a spinning layup. Plenty of English in that ball, huh? Skoog, playing his greatest game of his professional career, keeps the champs in the game with his deadly shooting. Nice going, Whitey. Had eyes on it. Now the Lakers start to roll. Watch Vern Mickelson score on his favorite shot. You see him right side the key there. Number 8, Osterkorn guarding him, but without any particular proof. Well, the boy, as hot as a pistol, hits another one-hander for Syracuse as the 2 teams trade baskets. Here's one of the greatest plays in basketball. George Mikan forces his way through the center, spins and shoots, and is fouled by Paul Seymour. Notice Mikan's form as the ex-All-American from DePaul dips, flips, and it goes through the hoop. Here's Bill Kenball again. This time he's got position on Dick Schnicker and lays it up for an easy bucket. Kenball was fouled by Schnicker in the act of shooting, and it's good. Clyde Lovellette, the old-time great from Kansas University, is in the lineup now for Minneapolis. Here's Lovellette scoring on a follow-up shot. Here's a fast break performed as it should be. Skoog steals the ball, passes to Mikan, to Skoog, to Schnittker, and it's a field goal. It's LeBoy again. He's found his favorite spot. There he is, number 16. Bingo, it's another Syracuse hoop. Lakers ball. Martin passes to Lovellette, and it's the automatic basket as Clyde wheels around for a 2-pointer. Here's a coaching nightmare, trying to figure a defense for a double pivot made up of Mikan, 6'10", and 240 pounds, and Lovellette, 6'9", 235 pounds. Mikan misses, but Lovellette follows it up. The Pros are more famous for their offensive exploits, but they play it rough and tough on defense. Here you see the Syracuse team in position with the basketball, looking for that one good shot. Take a look at the Laker defense. It seems impregnable. Johnny Kundla, the Laker coach, takes pride in the fact that the Lakers are the least scored upon team in the pro game. Notice how the men in white from Minneapolis literally dogged the Syracuse Nationals. They have that ball, permitting no opening. Earl Lloyd is in there now for Syracuse, broken hand and all. Lloyd smashed his paw in that tough Boston series. Lloyd's going to fake over his head, get Lovellette out of position for a split second, then drive around toward the basket. The shot is no good, and Jim Pollard from Oakland, California, rebounds for the Lakers. Skoog has it now. There's a pass to Pollard coming up. We'll pass to Mikan. But watch Bob LeBoy intercept. There he is. Bob starts up the court once again. The cat-like Skoog steals the ball for the Lakers. Now the champs turn this thrilling sequence into a basket as George Mikan gets a perfect pass from Skoog for a 2-pointer. The Lakers lead 31-28. Seymour and Kendall work the ball up the court for Syracuse. There's a pass to Lavoie. Bob tries to pass to Wally Osterkorn, but the ball is knocked out of his hand over to Earl Lloyd, who jumps and scores, and it's 31-30 Minneapolis. The Nats hit on a free throw while the Lakers made good on 3 charity tosses to lead at the end of the first half, 34-31. There's the first half of tonight's game of the week in the National Basketball Association. The score is Minneapolis 34, Syracuse 31. We'll be back in a moment with the second half, but right now here's an all-important message.
Well, I guess we'll never know what that important message was. But for any team playing the Lakers, the message was, try to contain George Mikan. The NBA's first superstar dominated the league to the point where the rules were changed to make things actually tougher on him. Dolph Schayes of Syracuse had his own plan for stopping Mikan.
Mikan was probably the greatest player of that time. I tried to get in front of him. I tried to push him out. I'm going to overplay him on the right side. I'll box him out. I did those things, and I held him to 42 points.
We used to take the train to Minneapolis. Now, you talk about a home court advantage. You ride a train from Syracuse to Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the home team's in their own beds waiting for you. Hey, that's a home court advantage.
NBA travel has certainly changed, and so are the venues. Back in the 50s, some teams shared space with the military by playing their games at armories. The Minneapolis Armory was used by the National Guard for training and recreation. But it was also the home of the Lakers, who hosted Game 1 of the '54 Finals, or as it was known back then, the World Series of basketball. We'll rejoin the action in the fourth quarter with the Lakers up by 6.
Here's the tip-off for the fourth and final quarter of this all-important World Series game between Minneapolis and Syracuse. Jim Neal for the Nats against Clyde Lovellette of the Lakers. The Nats get the tip and move the ball up in the front court. Notice how carefully the pros move that ball, not forcing it. Their play is deliberate, but not control ball. The pay-for-play boys are masters at basketball, and they really make it look very easy at times. Ball handling by the likes of the Lakers and Syracuse is a work of art. Finally, Al Messino's try at a long shot is short. Lovellette grabs the ball. Lakers are off to the races. Whoops, Clyde, stay on your feet and get a draw. Well, that's Slater Martin working the ball down the floor. Jim Holstein's in the far left-hand corner. Passes off to Lovellette, who shoots and misses. The Nats rebound and move the ball up the floor. There's plenty of tension now as both clubs sense the importance of every shot. Bill Kenbold is loose again. Number 15 watches it get the ball, takes aim, shoots and scores. Getting ready to set him up. There he is. The Nats narrow the gap, 56-52. It's Syracuse once again. This time Earl Lloyd passes to Bob Lavoie, who hits a one-hander, and the Nats pull up within the margin of a field goal. The score 56-54. The pressure is great as the Lakers move the ball up the floor. Scoot gets position, feeds Mikan on a beautiful pass, which you're going to see in a moment. Then watch George wheel around and score for the Minneapolis team. There he is. 58-54. With the clock ticking away valuable time, Syracuse trailing by 4 points has possession of the ball. The Nats are looking for a three-point play, but the Laker defense is too tough once again. Paul Seymour, number 5, draws a bead on the basket. His long shot is going to hit the edge of the rim. Watch Mikan get the rebound. Big 99. The ball's knocked out of his hands to Earl Lloyd, who goes in the air, shoots, but it's no good. Finally, it's knocked out of bounds, and there's a jump ball coming up in front of the Syracuse basket involving Al Messino and Slater Martin. Watch how the Lakers get the tap. Martin's pass goes over the fingertips of George Mikan in the play, which is coming up in just a moment. Even Big George at 6'10" can't get every pass. See that? The Nats now have possession of the ball. Pressure is great as Syracuse rushes the ball down the floor. The men of Serbia want to win this game and get the jump in the Basketball World Series. Notice how they move that basketball. Yes, sir, this is basketball at its very best. Finally, Paul Seymour gets loose, and the flash from Toledo takes a hook shot. It rolls off, no good. Mikan is there with the rebound. The world champions move the ball into the offensive zone. The Lakers, holding a slight lead, now are content to hold on to the ball, protecting that advantage. The Kendall strategy is to feed the pivot for that easy basket. Martin spots his man, lays an easy pass to Mikan, whose shot rolls the rim. Bob Lavoie grabs off another rebound, and Syracuse moves up into the offensive end of the floor. The Nats, famous for their fast break, have slowed down their play because of injuries. Chino shoots, and it's no good. Jim Holstein rebounds for the Lakers. He flips the ball off to Pollard. Jim moves the ball up into the front court. Pollard, trying for a solo flight, is tied up en route to the hoop, and it's a jump ball. Hey, wait a minute. There seems to be something wrong. Referees Charlie Ekman and Joe Serafin talking over the situation, get it straightened out, and there's a jump ball. Ball's tipped to Mikan. Big George passes to Holstein, who takes a rest right there in the heat of battle. Jimmy gets back on his feet with the aid of the referee, and play continues. Holstein passes the ball to Slater Martin. Martin, the spark plug guard, calls for a play. The champs are after their 6th World Championship in 7 tries. There's Whitey Skoog with the ball. Passes to Mikan, who misses the shot, but there's a foul called on the play. The score favors the Lakers 58-54. Mr. Basketball, George Mikan, has a free throw. Gift shot is good. The champs lead 59-54. George King passed the ball into Al Messino. Over to Kenbo. Syracuse wasn't supposed to go anywhere in the championship race this season. Here they are, fighting the mighty Lakers for the world's title. Coach Al Servey has performed the coaching job of the year in basketball. The Nats are a team without any great star. Sure, they have Dolph Schayes and Paul Seymour, but on paper, their squad doesn't measure up with the star-studded Boston Celtics of the New York Knickerbockers, for example. Here's Bill Kenbo, the star from St. Bonaventure, looking for that good shot, and makes it. No, it doesn't. It rolls off. The great Pollard grabs off the rebound. The champs move down court. Slater Martin, the smallest man in the game, has the ball. Minneapolis still leads by 5 points. Holstein tries to cut across the lane. There's a pileup on the court. Big Jim Neal of the Nats and George Mikan of the Lakers. There's a lot of weight. The two giants jump in front of the Laker basket. Notice the comparative size of referee Ekman. Looks sort of like a midget. Mikan will tap the ball to Pollard behind Neal. He flips it to Skoog. Whitey shoots. It's good, but the basket doesn't count. Pollard was fouled by Lloyd before the shot. Pollard's at the line for one. Very effortlessly, he makes the free throw good. Syracuse puts the ball in play with number 4, Dolph Schayes, wearing a cast in his left arm, taking the ball out of bounds. Schayes broke his wrist playing against Boston in the Eastern Division playoffs. There's George King hitting on a jump shot. Lakers ball out of bounds. The champs have tried the Velvet in the lineup now as they're resting Mikan. Watch Minneapolis work that ball around. Now LaVelle swings like a windmill and hits for the champs. Minneapolis has the ball again. Now watch that rebounding strength we told you about earlier in the game. LaVelle will miss on a jump shot. Pollard is there for the tap, which is not good. Finally, Mickelson, the third man, grabs the ball and it's a field goal for Minneapolis. Playing volleyball, in other words. The Lakers lead 71-58. Syracuse has the ball again, trailing, and with the clock dying, the Nats need every point they can muster. Wally Osterkorn, the lad from Illinois, is going to hit on a jump shot and does, and it's 71-60. With 3 minutes and 2 seconds left, the Nats start to pick up the Lakers defensively all over the court. Minneapolis moves the ball around, finally getting Pollard loose for just a split second. But Jim will lose the ball en route to the basket. The Lakers pick up the loose ball. There's the lead pass to Frank Pepsall of Seton Hall, who hits on a driving layup. 73-60 Minneapolis. After taking the ball out of bounds, there's a tie-up in front of the Syracuse basket. For Seymour, who aims and hits from 25 feet out. The Nationals aren't dead yet. Another jump ball, this time in front of the Laker basket. Martin for Minneapolis, King for Syracuse. The tap goes to the Lakers. Minneapolis is looking for that insurance. Never tell what'll happen in basketball. Dick Snicker is loose for a shot. And another two-pointer. Seymour takes the ball all the way down the court. Ball passes off to Bullet Billy Gaber from University of Syracuse. Billy hits on a long shot. It's the Nats again. Watch them now as they gain possession. Lavoie passes off to Osterkorn, blocks, and Wally's loose for an easy basket. With seconds remaining on the clock, the Lakers go into a stall. The Nats have to come out of their defense in order to try to get the ball. But the Minneapolis team moves the ball around so expertly that there's little chance for the Nats to intercept. Finally, Minneapolis gets a two-pointer as Slater Martin breaks loose for the hoop, and it's a field goal. There he is, wide open. Almacino moves the ball into the front court, passes off to Bob LeBoy, who spins one up there, but it's no good. George King shoots as the gun goes off, and the game is over. The Lakers are victorious in the first tilt of the Basketball World Series, winning 79-68. Here are the totals for Syracuse. Bill Kendall, 8 points. Wally Osterkorn, 11. Bob LeBoy, 15. Jim Neal, 8. Earl Lloyd, 3. Paul Seymour tallied 13 points. George King, 6. And Billy Gaber, 4. For the Lakers, Clyde LaVellette was high point man with 16. George Mikan with 15. Slater Martin with 13. Whitey Skook scored 11. Vern Mickelson tallied 9. Jim Pollard, Jim Holstein, and Dick Schnittker 4 points each. And Frank Papsall, 3 points. And that's tonight's game of the week between the Minneapolis Lakers and the Syracuse Nationals. Next week, we'll be coming your way from the Baltimore Sports Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, when the Baltimore Bullets play the Milwaukee Hawks. Until then, this is Dick Enroth reporting and hoping you enjoyed tonight's presentation.
I know you're asking, if this is the NBA Finals, how could they promote a game next week between the Hawks and the Bullets? Well, maybe it was a softball game. Maybe the film was tampered with. We simply don't know. We do know that the Lakers went on to win the series in 7 games, and the roster featured 2 former servicemen, Jim Pollard of the Coast Guard and Slater Martin of the Navy. Now, what branch of the service would today's players like to join? We'll find out when we come back. America's service academies have helped build the armed forces, but they've also produced some pretty fair athletes. Earlier, of course, we featured Navy's David Robinson, but the sport tradition really began with Army football, which has a fabled history, including 3 national titles in the mid-1940s. Leading those teams was the sport's most celebrated duo, Glenn Davis and Doc Blanchard. Blanchard, the powerful fullback, was nicknamed Mr. Inside and won the 1945 Heisman Trophy. Davis, who won it the following year, was known as Mr. Outside for his open field running. Between them, they scored 97 touchdowns. But Navy had a football superstar of their own, Roger Staubach, the 1963 Heisman Trophy winner. He spent 4 years in military service, including a tour in Vietnam. Then Roger became one of the NFL's best quarterbacks, leading Dallas to a Super Bowl title. Basketball also well represented. There was Mike Krzyzewski, who was a cadet at Army, playing under Coach Bobby Knight. Like his mentor, Mike went on to become a Hall of Fame coach himself, having won 3 national titles at Duke. Before becoming coach of the Spurs, Greg Popovich played 4 seasons at the Air Force Academy. After serving his military commitment, he returned to Air Force to begin the coaching career that took him to the NBA. And now he's the only NBA coach with a degree in Soviet studies. Wizards assistant coach John Bach is now in his 22nd NBA season. With basketball, nothing compared to what he went through as a Navy officer. John served in the Pacific during World War II, including the Battle of Okinawa and the occupation of Nagasaki. Last but not least, I thought I'd mention Lawrence Roberts, an Air Force colonel. He served with the famous Tuskegee Airmen, the first all-African-American Air Corps, which never lost a bomber it escorted during World War II. And oh, by the way, he just happens to be my dad. Couldn't be prouder. Of course, each branch of the armed forces has its own special identity. So we asked some of today's players if they were to go into combat, which part of the service would they like to join? And they better say Air Force.
If I was blessed enough to be in the armed forces, I think I'd be in an Army, just because I have an older brother, Kevin, who was a sergeant in the Army for over 10 years. And when you're in the Army, you represent the ground troops, which means you represent the soldiers in the field. You're actually on the concrete, you're walking around, you're rubbing elbows against the common folks.
I'd be a member of the General Infantry, the ground troops, the backbone of any conflict.
I gotta be in the Air Force, man. Them guys is so cool being in that plane. Them guys flying upside down.
Marine. I want to be on the ground. You know, I don't want to have nothing to do with the air. I want to be on the ground if I had to, you know, gear up and go help somebody.
I love the Marines. And something about the Marines that I always admired about these guys. Definitely tough guys. And I consider myself a tough guy sometimes, so I have to say the Marines.
Just a few good men from the NBA. Now, if you have some thoughts on the armed forces, you can email us at NBA.com. You can also play the role of TV programmer and help choose a show that will air March 21st. We're calling it the Vintage NBA Viewer's Choice Show with your host, Robin Roberts. Now, there are 5 to choose from: David Thompson, Dennis Johnson, Dave DeBusschere, Tommy Heinsohn, and Dr. Jack Ramsey. Cast your vote in the TV program section of NBA.com. When America went to war in the 40s and 50s, many NBA greats were part of the effort. And today's players have shown their own patriotism by giving their time and money to help in the recovery from September 11th. This season, players are also wearing American flags and unity ribbons on their uniforms, a constant reminder that the real heroes are those who wear a different kind of uniform, that of the armed forces. That's it for Vintage NBA. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Robin Roberts. Take care.